Okay, we'll call the meeting to order, please. I'd like to start by this meeting takes place in the traditional and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are all treaty people. Additions, deletions to the agenda. There aren't really any additions or deletions, but I'd like to request that we move around. We put item 7, a hit of 6, and just flip 7 and 6 around to have public input and questions before the actual presentation, because basically everybody signed up to speak about the Opera House. So if we could flip those things around, that would be wonderful. Is council okay with that? So make a motion with those amendments. Moved by Councillor Fullerton, second by Councillor Babineau. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried. So next is the council approved the April 28th, 2026 meeting minutes as presented. Moved by Councillor Strong, second by Councillor Greek. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried. So now we'll move into what's normally item 7, public input and questions. We have 20 minutes, so that gives each speaker 3 minutes. You must state your name. Questions or comments are directed through the chair. They're open to any municipal matter. And basically, you've all wrote down no that you don't want a response from staff. So basically, it's not an engagement session. So who's first on the list? Deborah Glassman. You're first on the list. Okay. Okay, looked like you were called to the principal's office there for a minute. Okay, Robert Lawrence. Okay. 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 Leah Lauren. Okay. Okay. Charles Bourne. Same. Okay. And last, Oliver Osmond, I think is what it says. Okay.
I'm never very clear about how that does work. It's because I'm colorblind, I don't understand the colors. Oliver Osmond, 93 Buena Vista Court, and a member of the Heritage Advisory Committee of the town, which is relevant to this. We had a very good session in November, which is well reported in the agenda package, and we were very much in favour of the proposals for the Opera House, the total project, but including the matter that's discussed tonight about the alteration to the sidewalk that is necessary to enable disabled access and really reasonably good access for everybody, partly because, of course, one of the difficulties of that building is that the foyer area is very limited. The thing I just want to emphasize tonight is that this might appear to be just a little bit of the whole project, and in a sense it is, but it is absolutely crucial to the whole project being able to happen. When the building was built more than 100 years ago, nobody thought about the need for those who might not be physically able to access such a building. We now recognize as a society that that's absolutely essential. And if it isn't made possible for everybody to get in, then really the whole idea of what's going to happen to that building becomes just impossible. So I do urge council to agree to this. That's been a very long period of time to take to get to this point. And I think it's very important that it now should be approved and the whole project therefore given the council's blessing.
Thank you very much. So there's nobody else that wants to say anything in the audience? Okay, so we'll move on then now to, I guess, 7.1 from 6.1, and it's the RCMP quarterly reports for both Q3 and Q4. So Commander Ferguson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. So I apologize first off that it was an oversight on my part. I had thought I had been to a council meeting previously to present the third quarter report. I figured that out through communication with Kayla that that wasn't the fact. So we'll review both the third quarter report as well as the fourth quarter report for the previous fiscal year tonight. I'll hit on the high points and I might jump back and forth kind of between both reports, but as we go, if anybody has any questions along the way, please feel free to stop me and we'll address those at the time. So the organizational structure obviously hasn't changed. The one thing that I will highlight is the full-time equivalent utilization for established positions. We'll notice a significant difference in the positions between the third quarter and the fourth quarter. We had multiple members who were off duty for a lengthy period of time for medical reasons. Those members have subsequently discharged from the RCMP. So I believe in total, just since Christmas alone, there was 6 impacted positions that we were managing that those members have since moved on, and all of those positions have already been filled with other members. So it's a bit of a change in our staffing process and how we deal with those situations. It's a positive change because we're able to manage them in anticipation of members moving on, whereas previously we had to manage it with our own resources until the position became vacant. So we're being much more proactive about that now and making sure that we do fill those positions in anticipation of the members moving on. Puts us in a much better position resource-wise within the district. Calls for service, we've broken that down between Lunenburg district as a whole because we do operate on the district policing concept for all 3 detachments. As well as the town of Lunenburg. And those would be the calls for service that are specific to within the town itself. And those are broken down by the quarter for the current year as well as the previous year, as well as the year to date for current year and previous year. I find regardless of which town or municipality I'm dealing with, it's pretty consistent with the numbers from one quarter to the next and annually in relation to the overall calls for service. The crime statistics, the tables that we have the occurrence types or crime types broken into. I review that on a quarterly basis, and I think I've discussed it before. Typically, I'm looking for significant deviations in those numbers, which is reflected in the amount of change. Anything significant, I'll usually review to try to establish what the reason is. So if we have a significant increase in thefts, then I'm going to look at those occurrences, see what the reason is, and that way we can look into it and see how we can address that within each individual community. So with those statistics, there wasn't a significant deviation in any crime type, really. The one that I've discussed before that we usually see the biggest fluctuation in is the traffic violations. And that has to do with the amount of proactive time that the members have that they can be on the road making contacts with violators. Through the road safety report, I've highlighted multiple points for initiatives that we've completed throughout the quarter to address some of the safety concerns on our roadways within the district as well as the town. Through that, I think it's the third quarter, there was a couple different initiatives that we used for strategic traffic enforcement. And I've also highlighted the collisions that we've managed throughout the quarter as well as the number of summary offense tickets and written warnings that were issued within the county as a whole throughout that quarter. The general investigation section, the one investigation that I would highlight that is noteworthy there, they ended up taking the lead in relation to a human death that occurred in November within Lunenburg District. And the reason that I highlight that investigation is because we were fortunate that we were able to front load that investigation with resources. It was supported by the Southwest Nova Major Crimes Unit, the Forensic Identification Section, as well as Emergency Management Section by supplying the mobile command post. And the reason I highlight that is anytime we have a significant incident, we have all those support services that can be deployed to deal with that incident and manage that. And obviously that comes at no additional cost to the contract partner. School Safety Resource Officer for that quarter, Constable Ted Bailey. Ted continued to be extremely active within the schools, as well as different communities and community programs throughout the district for that quarter. Point number 9, we've also highlighted some of the high points for the South Shore Integrated Street Crime Enforcement Unit. They did have a significant seizure during that quarter in relation to a just over 4 kilograms of cocaine, $275,000 in Canadian currency that was seized in relation to a drug trafficking investigation within Lunenburg County. That has a significant impact on the drug trade and the availability of drugs, specifically cocaine in this instance, not just for Lunenburg County, but at that amount, that's significant for all of Southwest Nova District. And point number 10, under significant noteworthy, some of the high points there, I've updated where we stand currently with the general duty policing resource model with that process. And at that time, it was still with our operational strategy branch that we were waiting for them to forward the final report to Department of Justice for review and final approvals prior to us being able to meet with the municipalities in relation to the outcome and an implementation strategy. So other than that, there's a few additional highlights in that section, but that essentially summarizes the third quarter report. Are there any questions in relation to any of the information in the third quarter report?
Councillor Daphne?
Are you seeing any the assassin game that's going on in other areas? Has that been here yet?
Thankfully, we haven't received any calls for service that I am aware of yet within Lunenburg District. I have been following it closely in the media. It's been highlighted in the media for the last several weeks, but so far we haven't seen any files related to that.
Any other questions? Councillor Strong?
Maybe not a question, but a comment, and thank you very much. I enjoy these reports. I was checking the last one from last year, and it was showing the well-being check being at 31, which is it surpasses reportable collisions. And I'm just wondering if there's a trend upward on these well-being, because if I go to the last page of the report, there were 206 calls throughout the municipality for well-being, and I think that's a very high number. But I'd just like to know whether there's a trend upward or whether it's at a plateau.
So there is an upward trend between, you'll see 2 different types of occurrence types within the chart that's there, and it's well-being checks and mental health related calls for service. Those are typically one and the same. Typically, if we're getting or if we're receiving a call for service related to somebody's well-being, there's usually a nexus to mental health that's involved with that. So unfortunately, we are seeing an increase, and those calls for service have the potential to utilize a significant amount of resources. In the event an individual has to be detained and brought to the hospital for treatment, then it's usually two members that have to accompany them. And sometimes the wait at the hospital could be several hours before the individual is seen and before the members can be cleared to deal with other calls for service.
Thank you. Any other questions? Deputy Mayor.
Not a hard-hitting one, but one that's a curiosity. In the calls for service list, there's an other category, which is quite significant. And so I was trying to rack in my brain thinking of what else, other than all the different types listed, might that catch-all item include?
So within our reporting system that we have, there's almost an infinite number of occurrences that are related to every offense that's listed in the criminal code, provincial statutes as well. So anything that indicates other is essentially an occurrence or a file that's related to something that you don't see within that list, which there are a significant number of additional occurrence types, which is why we just focus on the primary persons offenses, property offenses, and provincial statutes for the actual table that you see. But there are a significant number of additional occurrence types that fall outside of that. So that number captures everything else.
Just to be clear, so it's, yeah, none of them would be significant enough to add a new list. So it's just, if it's not to add a new line item, so it's anything else.
Yes, that would be.
So it could be something serious, but it's a one-off potentially.
Yeah, and we tend to look at the more serious offenses under the persons offenses that are included in that table. So if it's indicated under other, typically it's not as serious as what you would see on the table itself.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else? So the fourth quarter.
So for the fourth quarter, I've touched on it already for the established positions tracking. The vast majority of those positions that were impacted during the previous quarter have been filled. We are dealing with several impacted positions within the NCO ranks, so our corporals and sergeants, that we have individuals in acting positions to cover those off. It does create somewhat of a vacuum effect that if you have to take a corporal and place them in an acting sergeant's position, then you have to take a constable and place them in an acting corporal's position. But for me, it's important that we do that to maintain the structure, the oversight, and the supervision within the district. So that's how we're managing those positions at the moment. But as I said earlier, we are in a much better position resource-wise moving into the busier summer months for Lunenburg District. The update for our fleet, we did receive 2 new marked police vehicles during the fourth quarter, and those were to replace vehicles that were involved in collisions during the last quarter. Calls for service, again, same as the previous report, highlighting occurrences for the quarter as well as the year for both the district and the town of Lunenburg. I did make a note that there was an increase in false alarm related calls for service to account for 20 of the occurrences and the difference between the 2 fiscal years. And those would be specific just to Lunenburg town itself. For number 5, unfortunately, I had to modify the table that we were using for the previous reports. That table, as you saw it in previous reports, was produced by one of our detachment assistants who unfortunately is off on administrative leave for a period of time. So I tried to fumble my way through Excel as best I could, and that was the end result, which I apologize. I recognize the font is extremely small and difficult to make out. But again, it's no different than the previous tables that this one kind of ranks it in order of the occurrence count by violation, which again, the traffic related offenses, that's where we see the more significant numbers. And for specific to the town of Lunenburg itself for the fourth quarter, to highlight some of the occurrences that we dealt with, 2 break and enters that were reported, both at the time of writing the report were still under investigation. The one of the occurrence types I did notice a fluctuation in, and we have been tracking for the last little while, is theft-related occurrences. So there has been an increase in theft-related occurrences. Most of those are associated with thefts from local businesses, with 8 of them being specific to 2 businesses. Unfortunately, we're seeing an increase in theft of groceries. So in 8 of those instances, there was insufficient evidence to proceed with charges, and 5 of those suspects were identified in 5, with charges being laid or the complainant not wanting to proceed with charges under the circumstances. We dealt with 13 calls for service related to mental health or well-being checks within town during this quarter. We did complete a proactive traffic enforcement initiative that targeted impaired driving detection and apprehension within Lunenburg town during the quarter. Again, highlighting the nexus to mental health with calls for service within town, and that's consistent throughout the entire district. Road safety report, again, highlighting the work that the members have done in relation to violator contacts under the Motor Vehicle Act within the district, strategic traffic enforcement, the number of collisions that we dealt with. In total, during the quarter, 13 individuals were apprehended and charged for impaired operation, either by alcohol and drugs. As well as on top of that, 2 administrative suspensions were issued under the Motor Vehicle Act for blood alcohol concentration. Something else that we're incorporating into our annual performance plan under our road safety priority for the district this year is enforcement on the trail systems within Lunenburg County. Lunenburg County has a significant system of trails that travel throughout each of the communities that we police. We have unfortunately had multiple incidents over the last couple of years that resulted in fatalities involving off-road vehicles. So we are focusing additional enforcement efforts on the trails. Last year, we trained additional RCMP officers to operate our side-by-side. And the idea is that we are going to be present on the trails throughout the county during the year. Our focus is primarily going to be on impaired driving as well as unsafe or dangerous operation on the trail. Again, highlighted the significant points for our general investigation section. Our school safety resource officer, unfortunately, during the fourth quarter, one of the school safety resource members is off duty for a period of time. we're expecting that to transition into a retirement. So therefore, we've already received permission to fill that position, similar to the process that I discussed earlier, in anticipation of that individual's retirement. I think it's extremely important that we have members in those positions to manage the issues that we do have to deal with within the schools. So the idea is to have both of those members fully operational by the beginning of the new school year. I've highlighted high points for the street crime enforcement unit again, as well as a couple of significant and noteworthy points in relation to issues or investigations that we've dealt with. I do have an update in relation to, since writing this report, in relation to the general duty policing resource model that Department of Justice is prepared. We're at the point now where we can engage with the municipalities. I believe correspondence either has been sent out already. Okay. So it's in the process that we are getting ready to meet with the municipalities again to review the outcome as well as what the implementation strategy is going to be for that. Are there any questions on the fourth quarter report?
Any questions? Any questions around the table? I guess I'll have a couple comments. First of all, I liked your comments on the school safety resource officer. I think it's a very important role to have two of them. I think that if young adults, or in our case at the Blueness Academy, children, for example, know their local police officers and can go to them in certain times, I think it's a huge benefit for the young adults and the kids of the area. I know growing up having local town police force, you always knew who your local police officers were. Mm-hmm. You always felt safe going to them with something, and usually you respected them more too because you knew who they were, so you could relate to them. And I also I think we're very fortunate as a community to have access to all the extra sort of special ops that you guys have at your disposal that now we have at our disposal for the contract that we pay, that a small municipal force like ours wouldn't have that available. So again, I think that we don't see it. And we don't really want to see it, to be honest, but it's there if needed. I think we've seen it once in the last 5 years in the community in action. And I think people were amazed at the gear and the stuff that was brought in. So again, it's a great insurance policy, one that we hope we don't have to use in this community. But again, I want to thank you for coming tonight and presenting those two quarterly reports. And I think it's also very important that you come here quarterly and do this, because I think it's great for the community to see who our local staff sergeant commander is, and even to get to know us. So again, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate the support.
You can go home and get ready for the Canadians now if you want.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
So 6.2 on the agenda is the public realm alteration proposal, Lunenburg Opera House. So we're going to do the staff report first, or are we going to do the? Okay, that's what I thought. But okay, so we'll do the applicant presentation first. Yeah, we'll do the staff report first. Okay, go ahead there, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Sorry for the confusion there. Just in recognizing that the applicant's here to deliver a presentation, I just wanted to take a quick few minutes just to highlight some relevant contextual information from the staff report. As noted, this item concerns the proposed public realm alteration adjacent to the Lunenburg Opera House at 290 Lincoln Street. And for clarity, although the building itself is relevant because the proposed public realm changes are intended to enable barrier-free access, the request before council is focused on whether council supports the proposed alteration to the public realm through the encroachment of an accessibility plaza or ramp. And I'll let the applicant go into detail about their plans. However, related alterations include the ramp plaza structure itself with stairs, seating, planters, and a sidewalk extension along the Lincoln Street frontage. with the purpose to create barrier-free access to the main entrance of a significant civic and cultural building where the current entrance is not fully accessible. Staff note a clear public benefit in improving equitable access to the Opera House. At the same time, this is an alteration to the public realm, and the proposal would extend it into the Lincoln Street right-of-way, remove 3 existing street parking spaces, alter the sidewalk and street edge, and change how this frontage functions for pedestrians, vehicles, maintenance, winter operations, and public access. As seen in the recommendation before you, staff are recommending support subject to technical staff approvals through the encroachment license process. And also to highlight the heritage and UNESCO context is also important. Old Town Lunenburg is recognized by UNESCO as the best surviving example of a planned British colonial settlement in North America, with its historic grid, the layout and overall appearance forming part of its OUV, or Outstanding Universal Value. This is also described within the HCD plan and bylaw. And aside from the heritage value of the Opera House itself and its architectural form and cultural and civic significance, the HCD bylaw gives consideration for roads and right-of-ways within the HCD, including ensuring the maintenance of clear sight lines and integrity of the grid plan and layout. Staff have done a preliminary review against the OUV, and staff's view is that the proposal is localized to the Opera House frontage and does not materially affect the historic grid, street network, lot pattern, or broader spatial organization of Old Town Lunenburg. Staff also note that ultimately, though this encroachment is substantial and meant to be in place for as long as possible, it is ultimately reversible and in keeping with the standards and guidelines for the conservation of historic places. As Mr. Osmond noted earlier, the Heritage Advisory Committee has also reviewed the related proposal and supported the general direction, noting the accessibility benefits, the importance of keeping heritage buildings in active use, and the principle of living heritage. And finally, and as described in the included correspondence in the report package, no municipal capital contribution is being requested. The applicant has indicated that the building owner would fund the design and construction of the improvements, while the town would retain ownership of the public right-of-way and address responsibilities through the encroachment license. And in closing, staff are recommending that council support the proposed public realm changes in principle, while leaving the detailed technical requirements to be resolved through the encroachment license process. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll have the developer. Go ahead. Who's doing? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Thanks very much, Mark, for the context, and thank you to Oliver as well for the context about our meeting with Heritage Advisory in the fall. Sounds like we've got it all pretty much covered by now. Guess we can all go home to the Canadiens game. No, we'll give you a couple more details here today, and we're here to answer your questions as well, provide a bit more context, see some pictures, and yeah, fill in some more of the blanks. We're going to kind of do this old school style and just ask for next slides from our operator over here as we go on. I'm just going to grab my water bottle while we're talking. So here's what we're going to run through. But first of all, introduce ourselves.
Go ahead.
Charlie Bourne. I'm an architect at Fathom Studio. Been working with the Opera House crew for a while now.
And my name is Ilya Lorenz-Luca. I'm a managing principal of architecture at Fathom Studio as well. And we've been working with the Opera House team for the last 5 years approximately. And we're delighted to be here to present this very exciting project. So
it's yeah, been a long time in the making, so we're happy to be here. Let's keep going. Next slide, please. So just to cover the basics, why are we here? Let's go to the next slide. We're here to, as I mentioned, fill in the blanks to tell you about the Opera House project overall, and then to specifically talk about the public realm enhancement as Mark described it, the streetscape improvement that we're proposing as part of the project. It really truly is critical to the entire overall project, although the scope of what we're discussing today is kind of limited to the front. We do want to give you a bit of context about why it's important and how it feeds into the rest of this really important project. So we do need your approval in order for the project to proceed. This is one of very few things kind of remaining in order to finish up the construction documentation that the team needs in order to finish their fundraising and prepare to begin the next phase of the project, which would be construction and actualization of the project. A bit of background about ourselves. We are Fathom Studio. We've been active in Atlantic Canada for over 25 years. 5 or 6 of which almost now have been with the Opera House team. We're an interdisciplinary team of architects. We have landscape architects, urban designers, graphic designers, wayfinding experts, exhibit designers, heritage professionals, accessibility professionals,
Traffic engineers,
civil engineers, and yeah, we like working together. We're a happy bunch for the most part. That's about it. And then, yeah, we do have lots of experience working with streetscapes in Nova Scotia. Second one in from the left, you might recognize in Bridgewater. And then we're working between Halifax, Yarmouth, Sydney, all over the place doing streetscape projects of all scales. Go to the next. Thank you.
So we're going to take some moments to just review the whole project. Even though we recognize that we're not here to explicitly talk about the whole project today, we thought we would provide some context. So if we go to the next slide, this is the Lunenburg Opera House that you...
Just could you speak into the mic because nobody watching can hear you. That's okay. Sorry about that.
This is the Lunenburg Opera House that you all know and are currently familiar with. The project that we are working on is going to provide modern code upgrades to life and safety of the building, improve comfort, so mechanical, electrical systems year-round, provide 2 new spaces for performances and gatherings, and a wider variety of programming altogether. There'll be new amenities, washrooms, elevator, kitchen, and refreshment areas, and all new audio-visual systems. And last but not least, improved accessibility. So this is like the big piece is really getting all folks into the building. Currently, the Opera House hosts about 50 shows a year with a capacity about 350 people, and the new design is going to see that increase greatly to year-round use and many more people for many more events. And if we go to the next slide, just an overview. So we are refurbishing the main hall and creating a new main hall lobby that can accommodate a few more people, which will be wonderful. And to the next slide, we're just going to do this really quick overview so you can kind of see. This is what we call the WOW room. This is the upper hall. It will be completely reinstated and be able to be used. Currently, this floor isn't accessible because there's no barrier-free or accessible way to get there. And we're really excited to get people into this space. It has the most beautiful views, which is why we call it the WOW room. So that's really exciting. On the next slide, we will see the new attic space, which will provide offices for the Folk Harbor Society, but also other community groups who might use the Opera House for their programming. This space will be new. It's never been finished completely, so this will be a new space for the Opera House. And last, but certainly not least, the cellar, which is the finished basement, also has never been used. It has beautiful wood detailing from shipbuilders. It's a shame that no one has ever really been down there to see it and use the space, and we're going to be able to bring it to life. So many more spaces will be able to be used in the Opera House, which will, of course, mean many more people. And if you go to the next slide, as you can see here, this is just a timeline. We started working on the project in 2021 and have gone through many phases: schematic design, heritage approval, design development, and we are now currently preparing to finish our construction documentation, getting ready for construction essentials, like essentially so that the project is shovel ready by June of 2026, which is right around the corner. And also so that the Folk Harbor folks can get their funding in place to make this project a reality.
Hey, I'm just going to talk a little bit about why accessibility is important and is a priority everywhere, but especially on this project. Just really quickly kind of establish the background. I also just want to make a quick correction. We know that the cellar has actually been occupied in the past, but it has never been part of the public function of the building. So getting people in who may not be familiar with the shipbuilding history of Lunenburg's wooden construction, getting them down and seeing some evidence of that is a really exciting opportunity. And that certainly has not been done before. It's been a service space, furnace room, storage, all sorts of things before, but never for the public. So if we go to the next slide here, this kind of underlies, a lot of the reason for the project and the kind of priority for accessibility in all construction projects. We know they're important. Many of us in Nova Scotia do have disabilities, visible or otherwise. If we keep going to the next slide here, we know as well that disability rates tend to increase with age, and we know that populations are aging faster here than they are in a lot of places. So treating accessibility, making sure we're providing full accessibility for everybody is important. If we go to the next slide here, we also know that it's necessary. Building codes are starting to demand that we address these things, and we're certainly in that situation right now. The Built Environment Accessibility Standard came into effect this year in Nova Scotia. These are really good things. They present challenges, but they also present huge opportunities. We go to the next slide. Accessibility projects can be great. This viewing platform at Peggy's Cove is a great example of how making design for accessibility can be a beautiful thing. But let's keep going. Just to the next slide. Thanks very much. So let's just linger here for a quick second. So this is the Opera House today, as we know. As was already described, the front setback situation here is essentially zero. We don't have a lot of space to provide a ramp up to the front doors, the main entrances to the building through which everybody enters. This is the situation all over Lunenburg. We know this very much. One possibility of providing a new main entrance for everyone around the side or the back, that's another possibility. But in this case, we have almost no space anywhere at all. As was mentioned before, we need to provide an additional means of egress, an additional exit stair, as well as an elevator. We do have a tiny, tiny little bit of space on one side of the building. That must go there if there's really no other spot for it. So the main entrance is critical to be using. So how we're going to get people up those two steps into the rest of the building where we're doing all of these other amazing accessibility improvements is really critical. All of that other stuff, all these other incredible new spaces, those can't be accessible if the very first step into the building is not fully accessible. So that's why we're here, and that's why this piece of the project is so critical. Have I left anything out on this kind of before slide here? No? Okay. If we go to the next one then. This is the proposal, and this is that first step into the building. It's the kind of first impression of the whole place. It helps address accessibility fully, getting people up a ramp or a set of CSA compliant stairs, complete with handrails, which we currently don't have at the building, as well as some other places to sit, places to linger. And as a kind of added bonus here, as Oliver mentioned, that lobby as soon as you get into the building is really tiny, and we're dealing with really large groups of people in a tiny, tiny sidewalk. This does help provide a little bit of relief to that entire situation.
Yeah, currently, as many of you have probably experienced, when a show is about to start or is letting out, people filter and sometimes are standing in the street because there isn't enough sidewalk space, which is quite a hazard. So this will also allow to buffer that zone.
Let's just linger on the next slide just for a moment there. Just to zoom in a little bit more. So the whole plaza is made of really high quality materials. It is in keeping with the surrounding context, so it's still a concrete sidewalk with the same detail that we know the town engineer wants to see. We're dealing with drainage and other engineering considerations as best we can, and always to the satisfaction of the town engineer. We will get there. The materials are high quality. We're proposing granite, a light colored and a dark colored granite. We know that we see granite all over Lunenburg in foundations and other constructions. Handrails would be metal or wood, and we're proposing some planters as well to kind of provide a little bit of greenery here in an otherwise hardscaped construction. I think we can go to the next slide. This is a plan view from above with the street at the bottom of the view. And there's just a few more details there. I think there might also be an out-of-date presentation that was in your council package. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. That was actually our presentation to HAC in the fall. I think there was just a mix-up on files. So we get to show you for the first time on the screen. So just quickly running through this, there's a barrier-free ramp, a single ramp going up to the front of the building, just barely squeezing in there with very little room that we have. Some nice high quality materials everywhere, ample stairs, places to linger and sit if someone's waiting for a ride or hailing a cab, a drop off area. Well, I mean, this is a sidewalk bump out, so it's not specifically designed for dropping people off, but we anticipate it may be used that way. This is in order to give the space for all of the rest of the construction. At the same time, the available street space that is left there is exactly what's there today. When there's a parked car or a truck, there's just as much space for vehicles to pass by as there is today. The difference is that people are no longer weaving and bobbing in between Ford F-150s in order to get out to their ride.
I will also add that this whole project, including the streetscape, is being designed to Rick Hansen certification. And Rick Hansen certification, which is an accessibility standard, not only deals with physical disabilities, but also all sorts of other abilities and accessibility requirements, like things like waiting or needing somewhere to sit in order to wait for somebody to catch a ride, is all kind of part of that standard and creates a much more equitable environment.
We can go to the next slide. Thanks. This is just a quick before and after. Maybe we could, so this is the view of the street as if you were to walk down there in front of the Opera House, looking down Lincoln Street today. The impact on the overall street is fairly minimal. We included this in our presentation to HAC in the fall, just to kind of demonstrate the effect on the grid. We go to the next slide there. You might not notice very much at all, and I think that's the point of these two slides. You notice this little piece of the bump out here is the extra sidewalk that would be required to work around the new ramp and stairs. I think we can go to the next slide. So just to kind of conclude this piece about the proposal, the status quo today is really, it does not do any favors for the accessibility of the building. The fact that there are steps really will negate all of the other accessibility improvements happening on the inside of the building. It's critical that everybody is allowed to go in the main entrance of the building, that there is not some secondary or tertiary way in. Everyone should be treated equally and have the same opportunities in order to get in and enjoy the show and the experience of the Opera House. Deploying a ramp, stopping a lineup of people entering the building in order to get somebody in. This is how it happens today. It's a stopgap measure, and it's what you have to work with. It's the best you can do right now, but it truly is not a dignified experience, and I think we can do a lot better.
And just in closing, I'll add that doing this major renovation and addition to this building does trigger the building code, and the building code requirements do state that we need to provide an accessible entrance, and a temporary ramp or a temporary structure wouldn't suffice. So this project or this streetscape design is actually really critical for the project to move forward. If it does not get approved, the project cannot move forward, just to make that really black and white.
Let's move on here. Let's keep going. Okay, so we're just going to go through kind of bullet point by bullet point what's included in. There's a letter of correspondence in your package. We've kind of just broken this out into some key details, again, just to summarize the points made in that letter. So who will own this work? The town will still own it, including the plaza, the ramp, the stairs, and the modified sidewalk. So it still belongs to the town. The building owners will pay for it. So this is part of the overall project in order to improve accessibility. As we've already hammered home, this is a critical piece to the entire thing. So no municipal funding is requested as part of this. Maintenance will follow the kind of framework that I understand from Mark is made possible through the encroachment licensure arrangement, where the building owner would be responsible for the pieces that are encroaching. So the steps and the ramp, that would include snow clearing, salting, weeding, sweeping, what have you. And then sidewalks would be maintained as usual by the town. Let's keep going. Who is responsible for it? So the town will still retain overall responsibility, but then as those maintenance demarcations are made, that's where responsibility lies. So again, you're responsible for shoveling the stairs, for example, that would lie with the building owner, and then snow clearance on the sidewalk would remain with the town. This is the same as any other set of stairs and sidewalks. Anybody can use this work. The Opera House owners would not have any exclusive use to this. Of course, they would be taking up space on the proposed work as they normally would during a show on the sidewalk, but no one's allowed to fence it off or say, get off my lawn, essentially. And what happens in the future? So again, this is outlined in your package. If future changes, the town would have to retain rights to make changes to it in the case that would need to happen. The ask would be that the building owner would be consulted in the course of those works, and that barrier-free access to that main entrance would be maintained in any reinstated work. So of course, we're looking to answer any questions that you have about these final points or about the proposal, any other piece of the project as it pertains to the work up front. And if we just go to the last slide here, we'll just linger on this. We're really looking forward to seeing this actualized as a critical keystone piece to the entire project. We hope we've made it really clear how important it is and that we do need your approval in order for the whole project to continue. We think it would be a positive addition to the streetscape and would really be a fantastic place to go see a show and enjoy a show. Yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone at the table have any questions? Councillor Strong.
First, I'd like to thank you very much for the presentation, and Mark too for his input. But I just want to respond firstly that there's some anxiety I feel in the room about how long this has taken to get to council. And I want to remind everyone in the audience that we are the site managers of a UNESCO town. We take this pretty seriously through hiring qualified staff, our planning documents, the HAC and the PAC when they come into play. It makes us just a little bit different than when we are dealing with applications of this nature, and I appreciate everyone's patience. Then getting on to my questions, that you've answered a couple of them. In your letter, Mr. Bourne and Ilya and Tom, you end with by allowing the construction, and I absolutely have no problem with accessibility. It's top notch. It's time. But it ends with the town may enable a clearer and more equitable future. I would like to see it say will, and I just don't understand why may is in there and not will. So maybe you could answer that first.
It's a really good question. I think the best answer I could say is I don't see why we can't change that to will. I think we're pretty sure this is a good idea and that it'll work. Remember being a brand new practitioner and someone told me to use may as a kind of safe word instead of will sometimes. And I think in this case, I can confidently say will would be a appropriate substitution.
Okay, and I'll just ask one more question before my colleagues jump in. When we looked at this at the HAC, and you'll remember I asked you the tough questions then too, right?
They were good questions.
It makes us all think. And this is an important thing to think about because this is the one that will set the precedent in the town if it goes forward. So, okay, where is my marker here? You were talking. I want to know a little bit more about liability, and maybe this is through the chair. It seems like there's mixed liability and law. By the way, my profession was law. Mixed liability, and so some of it's actually maintained by the town and some of it's maintained by the organization. And I can see down the road, like joint lawsuits and things like that, if somebody was injured, and God hope that didn't happen, but I'd like to see that more clearly addressed, and I guess maybe through the chair, you could tell us how you could put that into the language of the agreement.
Through you, Chair, it actually would fall under the encroachment agreement and the licensing that's issued that would delineate what is whose ownership and who maintains. In any circumstance in the public realm, the town's always going to be listed in a liable suit. It's a matter of defending it through the processes of the encroachment agreements and licenses. So that would clearly delineate whose responsibility it is, whose liability would kick in for what area, as it would be sidewalks and our standard processes we have now in the public realm. But as noted, that the ramp and the stairs would be maintained by the opera house or by the owners of the building at that point. And any changes of ownership would have to come back for a new encroachment license and agreement to be issued accordingly, so that the new owners would be named as such. So there is a process within that, and delineating it through that licensing is the appropriate measures that is both legal as well as for insurance purposes.
So it goes to successors and assigns. That was my part of that question. And deep pockets would mean everybody would be sued in the event of an incident. But I'll pass on to my friends here around the room.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Deputy Mayor?
Thanks very much for the presentation, and congratulations to all of the Folk Harbor Society folks and the Opera House people, because I know it's been a labor of love for a long time, and the labor of love can weigh heavy on everyone eventually. But it looks like a very exciting project, and the whole idea of accessibility is extremely important, as you've made very abundantly clear. And I guess my concerns come down to everyone else in the community. So, for me, it seems clear that this is a positive thing for the Opera House and for users of the Opera House and the society and so on. But I wonder about the impacts on the rest of the community. And you did address some of the concerns. One of the questions I had, for example, was, are we narrowing the road in any way? And you've indicated that that's not the case. It'll be the same width, so there's no impediment to emergency vehicle access and regular flow of traffic, presumably, except for perhaps those occasional drop-offs and pickups, which I suppose are probably to be expected, even if it were parked cars in the same location. So limited in what we can do there. Also, other question was with respect to all other options being exhausted. And, I just had a quick relook at the property lines, and there's not a lot of space there. So presumably, and with all the time that's passed, all other options have been exhausted, I suppose. Is that fair? I expect you've looked at a variety of options for enabling the accessibility you need.
Yes, we did look at dozens and dozens of options. Even those that didn't seem very feasible, we did exhaust them. And I think the HAC can attest to how many options we walked through with them to really find the best solution, but also the only solution in the end is this one. So did you have anything to add?
No, nothing to add. I think that's accurate. As you pointed out, the property lines are very close. They're almost zero all the way around, with the exception of the one side on the left of the image you're seeing here. We have less than 10 feet to fit an elevator core, as well as some structure, walls, insulation, and so on. So we are very, very close, and that's all we can fit there.
I've got a couple of more comments. And I guess further to Councillor Strong's comments about legal and insurance impacts for the town. So, and I guess this is more a question for our own staff with respect to what the potential legal impacts might be. And I guess to be clear that there is provincial enabling legislation that allows us to loan out public space to another organization through appropriate mechanisms.
Through you, Chair, yes, there are. And in fact, we do multiple encroachment licenses with multiple property owners throughout town for different things, for everything from easements to right-of-ways to encroachments onto town land. So the encroachment licensing is the process that mechanizes and legalizes it for us and determines both ownership as well as use. And then that is used as outline for our processes to issue out the licenses and in most general speakings in these types of things, shared use of insurance. So like they have to provide liability insurance with this because it's in the public realm, and as well as ours is blanketed coverage. So yes, we already actually have that in practice.
And just to further that line of thinking with the insurance impacts, and again, following up on the town would retain overall responsibility as the owner of the right of way. So presumably the encroachment license would, and the responsibility to carry additional liability insurance for the area would fall to the property owner, or would the town not incur additional or would they potentially incur additional responsibilities for that change?
So through you, Chair, our insurance is a blanket insurance that covers all of our public realms and municipal spaces. So from that level of what our insurance would be wouldn't change. It really is the determination of where our insurance or where our liability for snow clearing, for sidewalk use, for that, and the determination of what the owners of the building will be maintained to do, and that's what's outlined in the encroachment agreement and the license. So by that determination, whose responsibility is what is where that falls into place. So we shouldn't see, from our standpoint, from a risk management, we're still maintaining the sidewalk, even if it was, the sidewalk jetted out or the sidewalk the way it is now. So we still follow our standard processes that way. It's just with this jetted out, there is that other public realm ask or process that would fall under the encroachment licenses and the determination that there would be liability insurance for that on the business owner because it's their request and their license with the town.
Just one more to sort of circle back to that, my introductory comments about concern about the rest of the community. There is a loss of 3 parking spaces with a downtown core that's very much challenged when it comes to parking capacity. That's not insignificant, but perhaps most significant on those other businesses and properties, institutions that are in the immediate neighborhood. And I'm wondering if there was any opportunity or if there was any initiative to consult or to reach out to those neighboring property owners to inform them and to hopefully gain their support for what was happening.
Thanks. I'm happy to jump in. It's Tom McFall, 201 Fox Street, Vice President of Folk Harbor and Chair of the Opera House team. I'm going to answer both of your questions. The first one is that we do have a working relationship with next door neighbors in 2 directions, not in the third. We've had conversation with Folk Harbor people about whether this would pose any disruption for their activity, but it doesn't seem to concern them. And aside from that, there's not a lot of other immediate parking on the street as there would be in front of Kinley's or the post office or elsewhere on Lincoln Street. So we're not aware of a formal process for contacting them, but the people who we think are important do know about it. They seem quite agreeable about it now. So first question. The second is about the insurance. We've had quite a bit of internal conversation about insurance because, of course, Folk Harbor has a pretty handsome, comprehensive insurance program, which applies to the building now, and it will be expanded. And there will eventually be, depending on the exact working relationships of the other tenant organizations, such as DocFest or the Theatre Collective, there will probably be aspects of insurance that's incorporated into their legal relationship with the building, as well as just the building on its own. So the final point on the insurance thing is that much of what we're proposing, basically everything that we're working on inside and much of what we're proposing for the plaza is about making it safer and eliminating risk. Right now, it's really dangerous to go in and out, especially if you have any kind of disability. I mean, people are hanging onto the doors to use as a railing. They're stepping out into the dark, sometimes onto ice and snow. So our volunteers are quite attentive to that particular issue right now, and we know how much of a problem it is. So I guess you can always worry about insurance, but we've tried to remove most of the worries that might have been mentioned here tonight. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Councillor Daphne.
So I asked the simple questions. I'm not as professional as my colleague to the left. Just a little personal background. In 1975, I was 7 years old, and we were living on the corner of Green and Victoria, where I live now. My older sister, who was 12 at the time, and my two other cousins, one was 12, one was 13, took off without me to go see a movie in the Opera House. And it was Against a Crooked Sky, a Western. And I don't remember much about my childhood, but I remember The Dirty Deed by Nancy, Graham, and Paula. And I, believe it or not, threw a hissy fit. And my dad took me and we sat in the back. And that was the last movie that I saw at the Opera House. So just a little personal background there. I'll never forgive them for that. I had a bunch of questions which have been answered. I'm a little concerned about the abutment. I do see people stopping along there to allow people out. So I'm a little concerned about that. The before and after drop-off places, I would like to see maybe a slope to the curb. I live with my mom, who in her later years went from a cane to a walker to a wheelchair. And it's hard, even a 3-inch rise. If you look in front of Kinley's, that's a friggin' mountain to try to get up over. So a slope would help. And the other thing is too, and I understand the accessibility thing, and I'm all for that. Lunenburg became inaccessible for my mom in the later years. So we would do drive-bys. I would park in front of stands, and Jamie would allow me to bring clothing out to show my mother. So yeah, so I understand the accessibility thing. The other thing I want to ask is, what about the visually impaired? Like, what do you have in mind for those folks?
I would love the opportunity to answer your first question first, and then we can speak to to visual accessibility. I appreciate your comment about I think curb cuts, so like a sloped entrance onto the sidewalk, because we're not showing it, even though this is in our technical drawing. So just underneath the gentleman with the pink pants here, there should be a curb cut shown there that is actually, it's not in this drawing. There's also a driveway just to the right of the building, which is a kind of existing curb cut. So that means both sides of the building have curb cuts once this is all said and done. Appreciate your concern very much as well about people using this as a drop-off area. Our position is that this is currently used as a drop-off area. The difference being that with parked cars here, Sight lines are terrible. And if there's a cube van or another large vehicle, I mentioned an F-150 earlier, someone popping out from there while traffic is running by is pretty sketchy. What this would provide is a guarantee that there's no weaving and bobbing, that if someone is choosing to illegally stop in the middle of Lincoln Street, that they're much more assuredly safe and more visible. We're also proposing some lighting on the front of the building too, which should help with all this too at nighttime. I hope that answers your first question and concern. And we'd love to speak to the visual accessibility too.
Yeah, so both the building code and Rick Hansen Foundation for Accessibility does cover visual accessibility. Some things that we would be incorporating is tactile attention indicators, which are the little domed pieces, so that it's cane detectable at the top of stairs and landings, the top of the ramp. As well as strips like nosing contrast color on the stairs, both interior and exterior, and a lot of contrast, as well as in the signage, to have braille on the signage and those types of things. So we did certainly consider it, and it'll be integrated throughout as well.
Okay.
That's right. Can I add one more? We currently have an internal broadcast system for hearing disabled, but it's not very well promoted and doesn't get very much use. But that's definitely part of the plan for all of the new AV technology throughout the building. So all 3 performance spaces will have one or possibly more systems that will assist with hearing as well.
I'll also say for fire and life safety, both having an audible fire alarm and a visual fire alarm is another integration.
There's a couple times through the presentation that you say, when finished, the Opera House belongs to all of Lunenburg. Can you expand that for me? Are you talking all of Lunenburg in the accessible way? Or are you talking about, let's say, a family of 4 with an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old? There will be things for them there. I know it's kind of off topic, but if you can clarify that a little bit for me.
That's a really great question. In the new design, there's an expanded programming that is more than just shows. There's ideas about hosting conferences or summer camp in the spaces that can be quite flexible on the upper floors and in the basement as well. So having 4 floors available for the use, it really expands the possible uses. You can imagine a theater camp in the summer during the day, and then shows at night, and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think there is certainly a desire, and Tom and team has done a lot of work to validate the programming and the feasibility of the project to make it really run a holistic program, inviting in many other community groups to participate in the building, to hopefully have a really wide array of different types of programming that the building can support.
I might add, your story about seeing a movie here is a perfect one in response to your question. This is a civic building, which means basically anyone for a reasonable sum of money can visit and participate in the activities that take place there. It's not being transitioned into a set of condos or anything anytime soon. As long as this building is allowed to be made fully accessible, to have the programming expanded, to maintain the financial sustainability of it long term, to do the upgrades that it needs to stay as a performance, arts, and gathering venue. That's kind of what we mean. It's an aspirational statement, really, to say that this belongs to Lunenburg in the sense that everyone will have access to it.
I think if I could add one more thing, over the course of the Lunenburg Opera House's life, it has been many different buildings, all assembly occupancies for the public. So it was once a movie theater. It once, had dance performances. It once had musical performances currently has hosted lots of different lives. And we want to bring all of those like performances back to the Opera House. So being able to host movies again, host dance performances and theater performances. And I know Tom's itching to get up here and say something. I can feel him. To really bring all of those previous lives back to like the current. You want to say something? Of course.
Access, well, the point of this is to develop the best community accessible facility on the South Shore, at least on the South Shore. And this is a historical thing that's been important to us for a long time, because the 1909 article, one of the several of the articles about the opening of the Opera House, extolled its virtues as the best place out of Halifax for performing arts. So we're trying to do a 120-year return on that. But it's always been a multi-use place. It's had everything from Chautauqua to festivals to Gordon Lightfoot to our newsreels during the war. And we're conscious of how that's part of the historical, but also part of the future role of the building. So it's technically owned by Folk Harbor. That may change depending on what comes out over the next several years. It's currently used regularly by DocFest, Theatre Collective. The Film Society would like to move back to Lunenburg on a permanent basis. There are a number of other regular users, ranging from the Chapin Family Concert right through to stand-up shows. But we also have things like, we've been part of the Heritage Society tours. We're talking about how to add the space as a place into other walking tours. We host at least once a year, sometimes several times a year, basically free spaces for community festivals and that sort of thing. And I think there might be 2 or 3 fundraising events this year that are happening there. So we take all of those and then think about how we're going to double or triple or more that kind of activity to get the building into full use by the time it's able to be in full use. So I guess the point there is that it's for years it has been moving beyond just the home of Folk Harbor Festival Folk Harbor Society, because Folk Harbor can't actually use the building enough to warrant this kind of renovation. But if we return to the more general performing arts and entertainment and local character roots of the place, then there's going to be a lot more that happens there that isn't necessarily exclusive or necessarily expensive. The final thought there is that, and I said something about this at the Heritage Advisory Committee meeting, all the other organizations that are involved in the project, as well as Folk Harbor, have their own kind of inclusivity programs. So they have volunteer for ticket programs. They have free films on the wharf. They have student programs. They have external programs where entertainers go off to schools when they're doing something in the Opera House. This happens at LAMP and other places as well. So just the point is that we're trying to make this the hub of all this activity, which it hasn't been for maybe 60 or 70 years, but to bring to enliven a lot of this community activity. And just for example, with Folk Harbor, they see the potential of using the entire building for their festival rather than just the main hall. And they're also seeing the potential for doing another completely different second film fest activity, probably during the winter, because of what the Opera House offers them. And then a final thought that's sort of similar is that the Film Society wants to move back here as soon as there's heat and there's proper projection equipment. So that's why those are both high priorities for us. But it's all to get things from around or things from the past into this future growth activity.
Okay, I have one more question, which is for Tyson. It was alluded to, Tyson, that the group is working with you to come to satisfactory or decisions on a few things. Can you elaborate on that?
Through the chair. So throughout the process, the Fathom team have come to staff, so Public Works and Community Development, with proposals. We've given them feedback based on, my feedback's been based on engineering best practice and knowing the town and in terms of the way that things in the right of way operate. So I think through the back and forth, we've been able to make improvements to the design, and it's what Fathom presented this evening. There's still a couple of things, as alluded to in Mark's report, that just aren't quite where they need to be, but there's definitely been involvement and collaboration between town staff and Fathom.
Do you see those issues being resolved quickly? Or are they in depth or?
I don't have a lot of, but through the chair, I don't have a lot of control over the timing. There's been considerable effort to where we've got to now. The kinds of things we're talking about are items related to one of the main ones is the water servicing to incorporate the fire service. So there are clear requirements within the water utility rules and regulations that need to be met, in my opinion. And it's not that the developer isn't prepared to do that. They just haven't got to that point. And is that fair, Charlie?
Thanks, Tyson. Yeah, I think that would be fair to say. I think having the approval of council, the recommendation to move forward with this has been really important before putting in further effort to resolve final details. And I think resolving final details is what we're discussing. Getting 100% to the finish line and ready for construction is well within our capabilities, and we're confident that we can get there and satisfy what Tyson's asking for. Making sure that we have the thumbs up to move ahead and get to that finish line has been really critical, and we're ready to move ahead after getting to that point.
I'm done because I just realized what time it was. There's a pressing engagement later on.
Anybody on this side of the room, any questions or comments? Councillor Greek.
Just a couple comments, though. I'm in no rush to go home and see the Canadians lose. My main concern throughout the process has been, ensuring that all steps were taken to kind of look at all the potential designs and see if there was any other options that would work without compromising anything like accessibility or the overall project in terms of the bump out and then losing 3 parking spaces. But, certainly we can all likely agree that that's been asked and answered, so I won't dwell on that any longer. But my only other real comments on the matter are, that it's certainly clear that the benefit of the building and Folk Harbor Society in its current stage, and I'd be excited to see what can go on in the future. And, just dwelling from personal aspect, I remember, coming out of the pandemic when my first live shows was at the Opera House. It was a stand-up show. I'll be honest, I can't even remember who it was, but it was just so nice to be back out there that it was really an exceptional experience and stood out in my mind. So that's what I have to say.
Anybody else? Councillor Babineau?
Thank you. No questions because they've all been asked by other people. So thanks for doing the work for me. Just some general comments. So I sit on HAC, but I actually was unable to attend this meeting, unfortunately. But the presentation and all the materials were great. I think, Councillor Strawn sort of alluded to this, that anytime something like this comes up and you are the site managers for UNESCO site, there's a little bit of, yeah. you know, and I had some reservations. I don't like the idea of losing 3 parking spots. There are other businesses nearby. But when we talk about sort of preserving heritage buildings, this has come up before. I'm looking at you, Deputy Mayor, because I know you've said it, that one of the best things we can do for preserving these buildings is to ensure their continued use. And while certainly the Opera House is being used right now, I wouldn't say it's being utilized to its fullest potential, which is what I think that this project would do. Also, I guess it's not nothing that in this particular instance, there's nothing really permanent being done to the streetscape. So just worth mentioning that. Not that I think that something's going to happen in the future and we're going to need to rip it all up, but you know, that I think it is important that it's not a permanent sort of shift. And yeah, that's all I have in terms of comments.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Fullerton?
No questions, just comment. Thank you so much for the presentation. And you know, it's been obviously a labor of love for the Folk Harbor Society, and it's a very important project. It's a very exciting project. And thank you for all the work that's been done so far. And there's more.
Okay, I just have a few comments if everybody else, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one other kind of clarifying question, I guess, with regard to process more than anything else. And I've one of my notes was, you know, is this the appropriate time for this? I guess I was concerned about the fact that that there still needs to be an encroachment license process, and I was wondering if this was premature. To have us weigh in at this point in time, which means if there's some issue down the road that can't be met, then it kind of seems perhaps for naught. But I'm getting the sense that this is a requirement of going forward. So the encroachment license wouldn't otherwise be finalized without the approval of council to move forward. So is that accurate? Am I looking at community development for that response? Thanks.
Through the chair. So I think that's probably an accurate assessment. We've kind of reached that point where, you know, perhaps there's a, you know, it's not your typical scenario where this would come at this point in time, but it's important as far as an encroachment license process, which would typically be managed by staff at the staff level. But the scale and like as mentioned, the UNESCO heritage considerations are significant enough that we wanted to make sure that council was on board prior to issuing anything, to make sure that those final details could be addressed through the staff process.
You. Okay. And I just have a couple of comments. Number one, I think that if we want anything to go in that building in future, we have to move forward, and accessibility is a big concern with the new legislation and higher levels of government. In order to do any kind of renovations, it has to be fully accessible. And I was fortunate enough to see the whole proposal a couple of years ago, I think, and I was excited at that point, and I'm even more excited now because I think it's going to be a great economic driver for that section of sort of the downtown core to drive people up, because we all know the waterfront has its own beauty and that's where everybody flocks to, and that's where they should flock to when they come to Lunenburg. But this is a reason to drive them up to the other area of town. And I will add that I'd love to see like even a movie night there at all. You know, sometimes they had all, you know, whatever rated R, sometimes a kid's movie. But back when I was a kid, I remember the summer of 1975. I was 6 because I'm much younger than Councillor Daphne. My mom was home with my little sister. She was a baby, and Dad decided to take me to a movie. He took me to Jaws. I've never swam into salt water since, and I wondered why. I know now he didn't want us to put pressure on him to buy a boat because I was okay not going in the water. So, yeah. It was a great movie for a 6-year-old. So, no, I think this is great. I want to thank the committee for putting as much time and effort into this as they have. I mean, it's been a 5 or 6 year journey. We've all heard about it. It's Lunenburg, so you hear everything. So we certainly heard about many versions and many stories, but to see the start of the final version here tonight, I think it's wonderful, and I think it'll certainly add to that area of town significantly. And again, so we lose 3 spots, and trust me, nobody hates losing parking more than I do, but I think we can live with those 3 spots gone, because I think it will definitely make the area much safer, and that's the main point. I think your point about people coming and going, I've been to a number of shows there that have been basically sold out, and both at the beginning and at the end, it's very dangerous there, because sometimes there's, even equipment vans right out in front is where they park them, and you can't see anything. So I think this is going to make it much safer. So again, I want to thank you for presenting, and I want to thank the committee for spending so much time and effort. Most people would have probably threw the towel in long ago. So again, I'm glad it's gotten to this point, and I hope to see it to fruition. So thank you very much, folks. So there is a recommendation there in front of us. Is Councillor Strong? Go ahead.
I'm going to move that council support the proposed public realm changes within the public street right-of-way adjacent to 290 Lincoln Street to enable, and this is very important to me, to enable barrier-free access to the Lunenburg Opera House. This is not on a whim. Subject to technical staff approvals for an encroachment license.
It's been moved. As their seconder, Councillor Daphne. Any further discussion or question on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Congratulations on the next step. So far, we've been here for an hour and a half. So if some of you came, we'll take a 2-minute recess, because if some of you came just for the Opera House, you can go home and get ready. Okay, we're going to call the meeting back to order, and we're on to number 8, correspondence. There is one item there. Oh, 8.1. Go ahead there, Paul.
So thank you, Council. The correspondence we've received is actually from the United Way of Lunenburg County. They're inviting municipal staff and town staff to take part in Menstrual May, which is a community-wide collection drive running from May 6th to the 31st. This initiative is to focus on addressing period poverty, a growing barrier that is affecting many individuals in our communities. So the ask that we were provided was, could we be an area where staff can bring in menstrual hygiene products, as well as to be a space for members of the community if they wish to donate towards this project and this initiative. So staff, we are taking that on and opening it up to staff as well as the public. If they wish to drop off any hygiene products, we'll gladly host and hold and deliver at the end of May upon completion of this drive. And we're going to do a bit of social media out there and just put it out to the public that we're encouraging this and to help support this initiative through the United Way. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Paul on that? Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to number 9, public hearings, public information and appeals. We do have one public hearing tonight, and it's on the public hearing for paid parking bylaw. So we'll start with the staff overview.
Thank you. So no one has signed up for the public hearing, so I'll keep it brief, and maybe if anyone in the gallery feels inspired, they're welcome to afterwards. But this has been before council a couple of times, and it's already received first reading. But again, just to go over some of the highlights. So for this bylaw, we're looking to modernize the language to reflect additional paid parking systems. So like the hotspot app, which is now live. Number 2, we're looking to formalize paid parking exemptions for volunteer firefighter plates and those with accessible parking permits. We've done this for years. It's just not captured in our existing bylaw. We're also looking to remove the paid parking time limits on Blue Nose Drive, Montague, and Pelham Street. So right now those have a 2 to 4 hour time limit. So we're hoping by removing that in those busy areas, we'll be able to accommodate people on boat tours or restaurants or just people looking to be out and about in town for a little bit longer. That said, the recommendation is to keep King, Duke, and Lincoln to 2 hour limits to accommodate shorter visits. We're also looking to add 2 free short-term parking spaces on Lincoln Street, so by Kinley's and the post office. So that is to support quick turnover for residents who need to access those essential services. Number 5 on this list is we're recommending increasing the penalty from $15 to $25. And then just a couple of other things. We are not recommending a change to the parking rate, which means it's still $2 an hour. And we did explore the idea of a resident or an employee parking pass, but at this time we don't recommend it, just because there are limited spaces we've talked about just earlier tonight. So those kind of downtown core where the paid parking is, we really want to support access to business, services, restaurant, and community destination. So a resident parking pass at this time with our current offerings could reduce that parking turnover, which may make it more difficult for visitors and customers to find those spaces. But we also believe the current structure of the bylaw does allow flexibility. $2 is relatively low in comparison to other tourism towns and some of our neighbors, like in Halifax. We also have free parking outside of the downtown core and then free parking on Sundays. And we're looking to remove paid parking for January and February, which is more for our residents and less when we're busy with visitors. So that is that. If anyone has any questions or if anyone in the public would like to speak to it, I'll leave it to council.
Thank you. We'll go around the table first, take questions from council, then we'll open it up to the public if they have any comments to make. But so around the table, Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just wondering if we could put some language in the purpose section. I know there's not a purpose section, but that this is regulating in the commercial zones, and it's not like punitive in nature. It has a purpose, and that is supporting availability and turnover in that area or in any area of high demand. And so maybe we could see something like that because this seems to be the feedback that I'm getting is, oh, like, why do I have to pay?
Anybody else? Deputy Mayor?
I just like to add on or layer on to the comment made by Councillor Strong with regard to purpose. I think it's lost on people, sadly. I think a lot of the time why we have paid parking in the downtown core, and it is really not just to generate revenue, although thankfully it does. But a main part or a major part of the purpose is actually to free up parking spaces so that people don't just go and sit and make it more difficult for people to come and go and support local businesses and move along when they're finished. And it is to facilitate the commerce that is in the area and not to be just occupied by folks who are resident in the area or for people who work in the area. I know it seems they feel that they're not appreciated, which is not, again, the intent either. We want them to still have employment. We want the businesses to thrive. Therefore, we need to accommodate patrons of those local businesses. And so it's the hope is that there is ample parking that is not paid, that's free elsewhere in the community. And so it's to encourage folks who are not patrons of the businesses during regular business hours to park elsewhere in the community or to get there by other means, walking or whatever. So anyway, I do think that it's important to do that. And I would support a change. And if you need a motion to make an amendment to the bylaw to reflect a change in the wording of the purpose, we could entertain that if that's what's needed.
No, I think at this point, the direction, because we're just here for the public hearing, so no decisions are expected of council tonight. So this will be back for second and final reading. So we can make those edits and make sure that council's comfortable with the final product if they choose to vote on it at the next meeting.
And Councillor Strong?
Just another question, maybe. I think that there are educational opportunities coming up for staff to educate the community on how to use the hotspot. And so people are getting frustrated, but that is coming, and maybe the staff could speak to that through the chair.
Yeah, we're working on an information type session up at the academy. We're still working out dates for that, but there will be multiple opportunities for public to come out, see how a hotspot works, maybe get them set up and comfortable with it so they can use it as well.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Fullerton.
Just and it may be in here, I just may have missed it. Is there provision in this update for the town to be able, and for bylaw enforcement to be able to redesignate or add or take away parking spaces at some point in time? Paid parking spaces.
Yeah, so this one focuses on just, so we've added those to the Schedule A. So what we're trying to do right now is that these designated paid parking areas are approved by council. But rather than doing the whole bylaw approval process, that's why we've created that Appendix A. So things like increasing the rates, changing the locations, adding more like those proposed in front of Kinley's spaces, we could just do that through a council resolution and bring it. And so instead of doing first reading, second reading, so it makes it a little bit more easier if council wants to review and change down the road. So also from an operational, if we see the need, we as staff could bring forward a report for council's consideration.
Thank you.
Councillor Babineau.
Just wanted to confirm, was in addition to, I guess, promoting turnover in the paid parking areas, was another reason that we weren't doing parking passes because Hotspot doesn't currently support them?
Yeah, that's correct. So if we were to do like a daily visitor pass, which is something we explored, people would physically have to come into town hall to do that. So a busy visitor day is Saturday and we're closed. So, and I think we had discussed internally, it might be frustrating if we're asking people to pay on the app and then they're trying to pay something on the app and they have to come into town hall. So, you know, to be explored down the road, maybe if Hotspot changes like a visitor parking pass, so people don't have to keep filling up their meters. But right now it's just logistically challenging.
Councillor Green.
Through the chair, when using Hotspot, I've heard, is there a 35-cent surcharge for paying using the app?
There is a fee, a user fee that goes to them. So I'm just trying to remember if that's if you have the app or not. I think if you use the tap signs, I would have to go back and have a look. But yeah, there is a fee for using that. So they're charged like $2.35. $2 of that is paying for the hour of parking, but 35 cents is like a user fee, which is something that they would have confirmed when setting that up. Yeah.
Just wondering if there should be potentially anything under Schedule A to reflect that added cost as well, or where it's not part of our fee, but part of Hotspots, if that's something that should be included or not.
Yeah, I'm thinking because that's more of their operational fee. So rather it locking in, we could make like a caveat, like, you know, pending other operational fees. But say if a couple years down the road we switch and went to a different service provider, they might have different ones. So just because we can't control their fee, like their 35 cents, but we could write a sentence to clarify that additional costs might, you know.
Anybody else? Councillor Strong.
Getting back to the actual bylaw and off of the hotspot. I think we should emphasize the fee exemptions because there are concerns in town about paying in the winter, and that seems to be not the intention of this legislation. So again, that could be in the purpose section so that they have like an overview of what it is that they're getting into. I think that's a big thing, and it's very important to this town to have to remove the paid parking for the months that are slow, because the real reason we're doing this whole thing is to keep traffic moving during the very busy months of the year.
Anybody else? I'd just add before we go to the public, that quite frankly or surprisingly, 90% of the comments that I've heard throughout the community or even read on social media have been very, very positive and very supportive of the changeover. There has been some glitches. There's going to be glitches with anything new that we bring in, and we're working on them, and we realize what they are. And also anything electronic, if you're anything like I am, sometimes you yourself, it's human error. So eventually that you figure that out, later down. I paid 12 months rent for a scooter rental in Calgary, and I was there for 5 days. I didn't know how to get it off my phone. So thank God it was only $3.75 a month. But anyways, it's like, technology can be a challenge for most people at times. But again, I think this is a progressive thing we've done. There's a lot more people out there that don't walk around with change than struggle with technology like some of us do. So again, I think it's been a progressive change, and I think that it's like anything, especially in a small town like Lunenburg. Any change, people are always fearful of change. So again, I think that once we educate the public on what it is we're trying to do and how we're doing it, I think they'll be fine. And I think the big thing is the big thing is to get through people's minds of what parking meters are there for. And if you put daily passes or made passes for staff, quite frankly, in the summer, for example, on Weller Street, if you gave every staff person a daily pass, there'd be no place else for tourists or visitors or whoever else to come park. So it's basically counterintuitive to have daily passes. Some places in bigger cities have discovered that. So anyways, that's about all I have to say about this whole bylaw. I think it's been a move forward, and I think it was long overdue because, one of the biggest things we do in the summer at my store is people coming in looking for change in the middle. So you're busy and someone's coming in and wanting $5 and quarters really took some time. So again, I want to thank staff for putting this together, and I'm going to open it to the floor if there is anybody. I know nobody signed up. But if any one of the two people sitting in the audience want to speak, now's your time. Go ahead. Sure. Yeah.
Right there. Oh, good evening, everybody. I know you want to get home, so I'll try to keep it brief. I'm Krista Heine. I own the gym in the downtown core, so a lot of the parking affects me directly on a daily basis. I do want to congratulate you on the work you're doing, and I think that it's in the right direction. I wanted to give you a couple of ideas. I don't know if this is the right time to do that, but there are a couple of ideas I have for you to gain parking spots. I don't know if you're aware of the Prince Street Green section that is currently not utilized at all for anything. I think the public thinks it belongs to each house next to the green spot. And you can't see that, but I'll leave it here for you. I submit evidence. That could be opened up and you'd have maybe 4 to 8 parking spots if you had that road back to add to the grid. I don't know why it was closed in the first place, but I just would submit that as a possible. And it's actually going to help in this Opera House expansion as well. There's also parking on Pelham Street, which is in front of a former business, Bailey's Fuels, which is 140 Pelham. The parking is blocked. It's painted yellow, but there's nothing there. There is no operational business. There's no reason that I can see that those spots can't be used. So I'm just giving this to you as potential fodder for thought. And there is also a place that I used to be very familiar with, 40 Duke Street, which is your old fire hall, which as far as I know is currently not operational for anything other than maybe some storage. There's parking all around there. It says no parking for some reason. Again, I have no idea why, but perhaps that could be opened up as well. And then there's another spot. So this is all potential parking that I think that we could really use in this town, particularly for me and my business, but for others as well. There's a spot on Shipyard Hill that is a huge, I think it's owned by the town. It's a huge parking spot that is just across from the museum, the Fisheries Museum. Nobody uses it. It's completely empty. So that's just a submission for you for future, and maybe it would solve some of these problems. I'm not sure, but as I sit there day after day, because we watch it on a daily basis, and I get a lot of the, complaints. So I was hoping that maybe that might help. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your comments on social media. They were very positive. So thank you. We don't normally get people coming to our, so thank you very much. So is there anything else? If there's no one else wanting to speak, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed. No further questions or comments. We can, Deputy Mayor, you good?
Just one other question with regard to the bylaw as it's written.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just throwing it out. It mentions having the 30-minute a few spaces, and we identified a couple new ones, but it doesn't recognize the ones in front of Town Hall. Were they left out intentionally, or was that an oversight? Or
they're not paid, but they're not metered.
No, they're limited though. So I just didn't know if that should be maybe mentioned, that there is a 30 limit, but they're signed as limited parking, and we would enforce that. But this is just for
again, it's a little
okay,
all under the umbrella of parking. But this one, again, like when we talk, this one is specifically looking at those metered paid parking, and then the whole comprehensive parking of the town will be discussed at a further date.
Okay, so I need someone to make that motion because I can't. Councillor Fullerton.
I move that the council that we close the public hearing for the paid parking bylaw.
Moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Mayor. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Now we'll move on. There's no business arising from the minutes or unfinished business, so we'll move on to 11.1, the inclement weather policy. And Paul.
Thank you, Chair. So Council, tonight before you is an updated version of the inclement weather and temporary facility closure policy. So this has been before Council several times. I do want to address a few changes based on our last discussion from April 14th. The main policy is there outlined, but this really comes into the administrative procedures. So we just enhanced section 2.1 types of operational decisions. So it looks at delays of openings, full closures, partial closures, and service reductions. Within this as well, section 6, when it talks to internal communications, it was noted that email was the only level of communication. We've just noted telecommunications, so that can represent any form of communication for us to be able to interact with our staff. As well as section 7.1 under the chief administrative officer. We've moved section 7.4, which noted human resources, under this section, which just says ensuring consistent administration of employees, work expectations, pay and leave provisions, including obtaining internal or external advisory support as required. And before you, those are the changes that are recommended within the policy, and staff are recommending approval of the inclement weather policy as presented.
Thank you. Are there any questions or concerns? Deputy Mayor?
I've had trouble with this since the beginning, and I still have trouble with it. But I think it's matter of role definition, and I know it's been pointed out that we have that there's a policy development policy, and this kind of follows the structure that former council put in place. But I think what I'm really struggling with, because it has been delineated what is adopted by council and then what is administrative in nature, and so that there's some definition around that. But because this is a very public facing kind of decision, I guess maybe what I'm struggling with is that there's no consultation with council envisioned with this. It is a operational decision only, and I understand that that predominantly would be the responsibility of staff, and the safety of both the staff and the community would be the primary reason for determining a closure. But there's a communication opportunity for that, or it identifies that there is communication of the decision, but there's no communication as part of the decision-making process. So, and it's no disrespect to our CAO, because this has got to be in place for whoever sits in that chair, or who holds that responsibility, but it's just a matter of a process. And I guess I'd be more comfortable if there was a consultation component, and that would traditionally best be done directly with the mayor, because we're not going to convene council to make a decision like that. But I think that's what I'm struggling with, and it's part of a bigger struggle with respect to roles and responsibilities that I think have been shifting over time, and I'm just trying to grapple with understanding it in the world we now exist in.
Through you, Chair, I have no issue with this. We do note it in several sections where the mayor and the chief administrative officer will review whether like meetings are safe to be held, where there are sections within the administrative processes. But if you want something dictated within the council policy, no issue with that, liaising with the mayor, having a consultation within the processes of that, noting that, yes, it is a level of safety of staff and the public for access, and that does fall under the CAO, but no issues with consultation with mayor or council as it relates to decisions that are being made for safety purposes.
Anybody else have any comments or suggestions with the bylaw? Any other comments?
Thing here, what would trigger it? Like, was there a weather report or an RCMP warning or something? And I can't find it now, but I wanted to look at that section.
Through you, Chair, it's been a while since I've deep dived into this again, but there was flexibility there. So generally speaking, this is not a decision I make solely within the concepts. It is the discussion with Public Works to see where we are within road conditions. It's also evaluating with the other CAOs of the county. This has been usually a 24-hour process ahead of time to determine what we're looking at from weather-related situations, as well as what we're hearing from REMO. So we're doing it on a due diligence basis within that scope of making this decision as it comes to either closing or partially closing, and then reopening or partially reopening, depending on what the conditions are. And we're looking at it from variable factors, from other recreation facilities, from school boards, from what other CAOs are seeing for access. And nowadays, with hybridized working environments, it's looking at, can we still have operations to a certain level at these facilities, or is it the work from home scenarios, which was brought in of more recent. So it's not done in a vacuum. It is definitely done in a dynamic discussion way. But if we need further clarification within that, I can add that as well.
I actually found it under 2 considerations, and it's pretty clear to me where you get the discretion to make the call. So that's important to me.
Anybody else? So I guess if we're going to change anything, basically the way we've been doing it now, and it sort of relates to that here in places. It doesn't really spell it out, but whenever it's been closed, since Paul's been here, he's always texted me and he said, hey, like Modal's closing or not opening, Mahone Bay is not opening, TOB or whatever. All the CIOs, I guess, sort of have a party line and they make a decision amongst themselves, and he just tells me what his plan is. And quite frankly, that's his role as the CAO. And I always say the hardest job that I don't think anybody would ever want on the school board, for example, is canceling school. Because no matter what you do, I can guarantee you in the public's eye, you made the wrong decision. Unless there's actually 10 feet of snow on the ground, nobody thinks you made the right decision, right? So I think if we have to put it in here, I have no problem with that. It just technically, if the CAO, whoever it may be, contacts the mayor, technically under the MGA, the mayor actually has no authority to tell them they can't close it because it's an operational decision. So we can put it in there all we want, and I don't mind it being in there because I think it's a little more, doesn't put everything on the CAO's shoulders either, but technically in the MGA that could be challenged, I think, the way the MGA is written. So it just depends on things have changed so much in the last 10 or 15 years. We wouldn't be talking about this even 7 or 8 years ago because this building never closed. Like I think White Swan, the town hall was still open, right? So that's why I think it's such a shocker to the people that live here for a long time that the facility's actually closed, but public safety is a much more, I guess, a bigger concern because everybody has a car now, more cars on the road, everything else is more dangerous. So you see this, and we're a regional town now more so than just a town. So our school is regional. We basically provide services for the surrounding area. So not everybody can walk to wherever they want to go. So I don't mind the policy the way it's written, but if council wants it added that the CAO confers with the mayor, I have no problem with that. It's council's basically bylaw, so that's a decision we can make as a group.
I think for me, there were a couple of times when we were closed this winter when I was actually meeting with staff who were present that day. So, and I didn't even know that we were closed because I hadn't checked my email. I came up to see staff when they were here. One of them was with Mark. So I think internal communications are just as important as external communications. And maybe that is what happens between the CAO and the mayor, if it's in there somehow, that it gets then sent to us. I mean, he's doing the operational, obviously, I get that, but in terms of us as a council, I guess we're operational. I don't know. Anyway.
Through you, Chair, easy enough to add a section in that just notes, communication with the mayor and council for closures or modifications to hours or, reviewing that. And we can probably add that under Section 8 of responsibilities. Like there's a section of council where it says council is providing the authority of the policy to the CAO. And then we could put a section beyond Section 2, move this section down and just put a new Section 2 that says the CAO will communicate and coordinate with the mayor and council on the changes of operation of closures and facility operations in that light.
We don't debate. Council doesn't end up debating. It's both of your decisions and then it gets communicated to us.
I think communication is a big thing. I don't think we can have it as a council decision because it's going to be made at like 6:30 in the morning. So some people don't answer their texts in a day or two, let alone 6:30 in the morning. So I just think that we should probably, not make it too difficult. But I don't mind the fact that it's, the mayor and the CAO discuss it and then we'll let council know what the decision is. The other thing that I think we should look at doing, and I don't really see it written out in the policy, but sometimes when we close all day, I think it's important to review the closure all day later on in the day for places like the recreation department, because sometimes it is like just a terrible at like 10 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun's out. We have such a great public works team that our streets are pretty clear. And, there's other arenas around us that are open for the night and we're not, or the community center, for example. So we do, that's really, I've never had anyone call me this past year and complain that the town hall's not open, to be quite honest with you. Not that your jobs aren't important, but you mostly can do like pay bills and that online. But trust me, I've heard from beer league hockey players when you're not open. So we should really look at it again, even minor hockey. I know that when I was president of Social Minor Hockey, we had like 6 Wednesdays in a row. Ice was canceled because it was Wednesdays was snow day, and you never get that ice time back. And those kids pay for so many slots. So again, I think that's the one thing we should review. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you for that, Your Worship. And that's kind of what I'm getting at, or I'm grappling with. It's an operational decision, but they don't call staff and ask why it's closed. They call us. And I think there needs to be some level and appreciation at the council level as to the rationale for that decision. And sometimes we don't know. We know it's closed, and you know that, but we can't defend it or we can't speak to it if there's not been some level of communication around that. So I just think it would be helpful to recognize that somehow in the policy.
Yeah, I think communication is the key because I think the one Monday night, or Thursday night, the curling club couldn't open because we had such a bad snowfall through the day. The staff couldn't keep up because of the night before, so we couldn't get the community center parking lot cleared in time. And again, the curling club was calling me. I had no idea. I didn't leave the house. It was such a crappy day, but it did get nicer on later in the day. And the curling club was wondering how they were going to have curling with no parking lot cleared, so they didn't have curling. So once I contacted Paul told me why. They completely understood. It was no argument. They let their membership know by an email, but just communication, I think, has to be definitely in there somewhere, is made a bit clearer. Because again, the deputy mayor is 100% correct. Nobody's calling staff for the most part. They're going to look for one of us 7 and give us a hard time. So, yeah. So we'll add some things about communication in there and communicate with the mayor, and then the mayor and CEO will communicate to the rest of council why it's closed or what the procedure is going to be. Whether, if you look at the forecast, quite frankly, nowadays, usually you can say we're going to reevaluate at 2:30 or 3 o'clock. The only reason most businesses don't do that is because they're only open till 4 or 5. So your day is done then. But I think with our situation and quite frankly, recreational facilities being at such a premium, that we should certainly look at it, because sometimes if people, for example, and I'm not saying it should outweigh safety, but if someone only say curls one night a week and that night keeps routinely being closed because it happens to be a snow day, they really don't get their membership even paid for, or ice time, right? So again, if we're okay with some minor tweaks, or does someone want to see this policy brought back with the minor tweaks? What's your pleasure?
Let's do the minor tweaks.
Deputy Mayor?
Sorry, I was going to say the same thing, just because, the inclement weather, hopefully that is not urgent at this point. So, I think that just for a level of comfort, that would be helpful.
Okay, so then we're going to decide, are we all okay with that, to table it for a future meeting with the minor tweaks that we talked about? And if we get a snowstorm between now and say September, we have bigger problems on our hands in this bylaw. So we'll move. Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll move on to 11.2, grant application, climate ready plans and processes. And that is Paul as well.
Thank you, Council. So we've been working with the Clean Foundation on climate change adaptation processes, discussed previously to Council that we have a 3-year agreement with them, and they've been working well with community development and public works, moving through a process of climate change lenses and adaptations. What we have before us is an opportunity to apply for some funding to help us move through a climate change ready plan that's now meeting the provincial levels and engagement that is required. A little bit of detail, again, was provided within the report of where we're looking for. So this project aims to improve understanding of local climate hazards, risks, and vulnerabilities, reduce long-term infrastructure and service delivery risks through climate-informed governance, embed climate resilience and quality and equity into the asset management and capital planning processes and systems, and build organizational capacity to support the sustained climate adaptation processes. Knowing that the report did highlight a potential for a staff member in speaking with the Clean Foundation, right now we should be looking at getting like AIM or one of the other climate adaptation consultants to help baseline the report out first, and that'll give us a determination of next steps of what we need to do, looking at the organization, how are we going to implement, as well as what levels of staffing are necessary for these types of initiatives to go forward. Right now, we're just applying for the grant funding to see if we can be eligible. Well, we're eligible for it, but putting in a grant application, and hopefully we're successful. But you do have a recommended motion that is actually specific to the grant application as needed prior to submission. So council, back to you if you have any questions, comments, follow up.
Are there any questions for Paul on this report? If there isn't, Councillor Babineau?
Oh, it's not a question. I was just going to say I'd be happy to move it. Do I
Okay,
have to read
go.
that whole thing though? Oh, damn. Be it resolved that at the regular meeting of the Town of Lunenburg Council on Tuesday, May 12th, 2026, Council approved by unanimous vote the following. Whereas the Town of Lunenburg has the following interests: to understand and plan for climate risks with a strong emphasis on building the analytical, organizational, and decision-making foundations required for effective long-term climate adaptation, to strengthen Lunenburg's ability to identify climate hazards, assess risk and vulnerability, and translate this information into coordinated, equitable, and evidence-based planning frameworks, and to support the town in advancing early-stage climate adaptation planning and integration across governance systems. Whereas the Town of Lunenburg is undertaking resilience planning through adaptation and asset management in the Town of Lunenburg, be it resolved that the Town of Lunenburg Council directs staff to apply for a funding opportunity from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Local Leadership for Climate Adaptation Initiative for resilience planning through adaptation and asset management in the Town of Lunenburg. Phew.
It's been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Fullerton. Any further discussion or question on the motion? Councillor Strong first, and okay, Deputy Mayor then.
Should we have in the motion by unanimous vote before the vote?
I think that might have been a misprint. I was hoping we all put our hands up, but anyways, we should probably take that part out of the motion. Okay. Okay, any other questions or comments?
I have a question. The Community Resilience Coordinator, what years would that person be working up in the planning department?
Through you, Chair, to be determined at this point. Let's look at getting through the climate resilience plan first, with a determination of looking at it potentially for 27, 28 or 28, 29 when we're looking at budgeting.
Not in the budget.
No, it's not in the budget for this year. No, it would be to move forward to do the base plans and then reevaluate what we need to look at for capacity processes.
Comment, I guess, on how important this is after our last Federation meeting down in Yarmouth, where it was announced that climate change is not an emergency anymore. It's a routine. So there's, we got to be ready for it every day. It's not a once in a 100 years event. So I think on the heels of that, it's a very worthy process to be involved in, and especially with our water meeting yesterday, where we don't even know what the risks are. So I'm supporting of it.
Deputy Mayor.
One more clarifying question. The $10,000 financial commitment, is that within our budget, our budget for this year?
Through you, Chair, yes, we have flexibility within budgets that we can manage that. If necessary, it's an up to. From my understanding, in speaking with the Clean Foundation, an AIM estimate was like $13,000 for this. So if we can get 75, 85, 95% grant funding, it's very minimal in impact to our budget.
Okay, and this also became an issue. Nobody in this town or any municipality really dropped the ball. This was, I think most municipalities are waiting for the province to come through with their climate change plan that they were supposedly coming through about 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago. And then because of some pushback, quite frankly, they decided to turn it back. They actually had a plan all ready to roll, and then they turned it back onto each municipal unit on their own. And they've offered to help, and then they just and have staff that will help, but they're not doing a plan province wide. It's up to every municipal unit to come up with their own plan. That's why it's important to watch where you live and what the actual rules are, because the rules are going to be different in the town of Lunenburg probably than what they are in First Peninsula. That's just the way it goes. So we have a mover and a seconder. Everybody ready to vote on the recommendation? In favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Now, oh yeah, we can put the unanimous back into the motion. So now 11.3, it's potable water, wastewater quality reports from Tyson. I'm going to do this for my colleague, Councillor Daphne. Do you want to just highlight the highs and lows in the report? And if we have any questions, we can ask you questions, because someone to the right of me, I think, wants to go soon, or she's not going to talk to me again. So.
Thank you, Your Worship. Best report of the evening coming up. So potable water, as the mayor's requested, water quality tests all passed with flying colours. Our withdrawals all within the limits were allowed. There's 2 water main breaks that were repaired. One thing I did move over the lethality test. Oh, I'm jumping ahead to the wastewater one. Sorry. Yeah, so everything's good with the water system for the last quarter.
Do you have any questions on the water system? Okay, move on to the wastewater.
Wastewater. So again, with our provincial and federal wastewater systems, all the specifics are within the requirements. The lethality testing was performed in December. We passed that as well. Unfortunately, I missed the sewer breaks and complaints in the previous quarter's report, so I just thought it was important to document them there. So apologise for that oversight. And then there's a list of the overflows that occurred during rain events.
Any questions on the wastewater report to Tyson? Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Daphne, I have a question. Just about the do the overflows account for when there'd be are those test results that do occur? You noted that there's some when we do exceed the limits, although in general or overall, as per our averages, we're fine as far as our approvals are concerned. But I just wondered if there's correlation between when those occasions when we do have like the test results were above the provincial requirements in 7 instances for E. coli in the report notes, and 3 instances for CBOD or no, TSS results exceeded both in 3 instances. Do those have anything to do with overflows, or is there a reason why those, or is it just fluke instances when those occasions occur?
So through the chair, when we have overflows, the overflows in this report are at lift stations, and they're in more intense rain events. So those are the times when the wastewater is more dilute, because there's more of a stormwater component. So I don't have in front of me the specific 7 times, but I think it would be unlikely that it was at the same time. And we are allowed exceedances. Our approvals are based on averages. So it's not that we're not in compliance when those things happen, as long as our averages fall under the limits.
And just sorry, that was I was thinking of harbor water quality versus testing that's done at the plant. So thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Tyson, for your report. And we'll move on now to number 12, notice of motions, information requests, and council reports. I'll start to the left. Councillor Fullerton.
Just quickly follow up on the municipal conference that we all attended in Yarmouth. Several of us have already posted on Facebook and other social media what we learned. But just to put it in perspective, we were there for 2 full days and we had 15 different presentations. You know, it was very, very aggressive schedule and we learned a heck of a lot. Since we're back, we've had a busy schedule as well with committee meetings, council at whole. We attended quite happily the firefighters banquet last Saturday evening. Yesterday, any questions I did have about water, Tyson answered at the water committee meeting. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green.
Couple points this evening. Also was able to attend the conference in Yarmouth along with many of my colleagues. Learned lots, got to speak with a lot of great people from around the province. Was also able to attend a regional chairs committee meeting for solid waste management, in which some of the EPR issues and specifically ICI recycling for businesses was addressed from certain parts of the province. And the second and most important part of my council report this evening, go Sabres.
Councillor Babin.
Nothing to report.
Councillor Strong.
Okay, it's just me and I won't have much to say except that it was Fawn Creaser's birthday yesterday. And yeah, the shine is almost off of the meetings down in Yarmouth. We're back to normal. I think I had 4 meetings yesterday in total, and tomorrow looks like a heavy day again. So that's it for me.
Councillor Daphne.
Yep, I left her room.
Well, figures I'd pick the night to say a lot. Just an update. It's 2-0 Buffalo. Accessibility Directorate. The principle of nothing about us without us is the core value of the Accessibility Directorate. You can now share your lived experiences with accessibility in Nova Scotia. The work being done today will shape the future of access for our province, and they are inviting the public to join with them. The Accessibility Directorate is creating a roster of Nova Scotians with disabilities who are interested in reviewing and providing input on future projects, such as resources, workshops, and other projects about accessibility or intended for the public. Depending on the number of projects that need to be reviewed each year, you may be invited to review many, a few, or no projects at all. You can say no to the invitation, and this will not affect your eligibility to be invited to provide input on future projects. You will be offered an honorarium for each project to review and provide input. The amount will be included in the invitation to review and provide input. Your individual accessibility needs will be met for any projects you are invited to review. By providing input and sharing your lived experience with accessibility in Nova Scotia, you help to build a stronger province for everyone. Contact number is 1-800-565-8280 or accessibility@novascotia.ca. Lunenburg Heritage Society, come join us for the love of heritage. Keeping heritage alive takes a lot of work. Promotion, education, and progression. I'm looking for my fellow Gen Xers or millennials to come and join us. Lots of exciting times ahead for the LHS. We also have a specific ask. Someone who has a bit of time and likes to chat. Our membership talent acquisitions manager position, I know, big title, is open. And who wouldn't like to have a fancy title like that? Nathalie Irving is waiting to hear from you. Nathalie.irving@hotmail.com. Scoop the poop. I've become famous for wallowing in the poop. As you know, I've posted a couple times about the amount of dog poop being left behind on properties all over town. A few people thought it was a laughable subject. Luckily, for most of us, we understand the health concerns and would like Lunenburg to show its pretty side. Staff is working on an educational, informational piece for social media, correct? Thank you. And finally, it is Nurses Week from May 11th to the 17th. The theme this year is the power of nurses to transform health. The theme is utilized by the Canadian Nurses Association to emphasize nurses' leadership in patient care, innovation, and health system transformation. I thank you to my many nurse friends and a special acknowledgement of my niece, Amy Hartling, who is a nurse on the medical floor of the IWK. I is done.
Deputy Mayor. And I'd just like to update Paul, Kayla, and I attended a session yesterday at Modal, and one of the things we discussed was the update on the regional economic development working group that the consultants are working on. So they're still very hopeful to have a final report probably in early fall. They're going to do some more consultation with both staff and then with elected officials. So we'll hear more about that in the upcoming months, probably. June sometime they're going to do that, and then we'll have to meet again as a region. But that was a very informative meeting, and basically that's all I have to say this week. Yarmouth again, it was almost a week and a half ago. It was a great event. I thank all my colleagues for attending, and people always ask, what we do in a day. Well, I've been actually here in meetings since noon today. So if the Leafs were playing, we'd be out of here by now. So, but unfortunately, us Leafs fans have till October next year to go back to watching hockey. So we'll move on. Items for consideration of committee of whole, just an update to highlight. There's a good chance the June 2nd committee of the whole meeting will be deferred because a number of us will be away. So staff will send out a notice and we'll do it. We'll make the decision or make the final date early enough that we can let the public know well in advance. Motion action list is there as always. And now we need a motion to move in closed session. Moved by Councillor Fullerton. Thank you very much.